So it sounds like there's certainly considerations for the size of the business model itself. But you did just mention that there's sort of common elements that are important in any sort of go-to-market plan, regardless of size or business model. So can you talk a little bit about that? What are some of the key elements in a go-to-market plan?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And so when you first think about launch planning or a go-to-market plan, the very first thing you want to do is like, hey, what are my objectives? What are the KPIs for the launch? We talked about, is your objective are you creating a new category or are you entering a competitive market? And then what are your KPIs? So very clearly defining objectives and KPIs for the launch. What constitutes success? That's kind of where you begin with. Then you go into the target audience. Like basically in target audience, the first thing you need to do is think about who is your ideal customer profile. That's basically defining the kind of companies you're going to go after. Talking more from an enterprise, client's perspective. And then the buyer persona. Is it like a PM? Is it a PMM? Like, what is the buyer persona within those companies? So, and then defining that persona is pretty critical. And then, a lot of the times there's a lot of confusion in the go-to-market side of things is because there are different members of the sales team. They're not very clear as to like who they are actually like going after and pitching to, especially when there's a new product or a feature. So clearly defining the persona is important. The next step is like thinking of Andy. So you had a question.
No, I was just gonna jump in and ask. I feel like defining personas is really important. We heard one of the contributors in the videos just sort of reminded me towards the end talked about alignment with the actual need of the product. And so I think we sort of started with some of the videos saying, it wasn't aligned with support or I wasn't aligned with marketing. But towards the end, someone said, sometimes these product launches just aren't connected with what the ultimate need actually was of the user. There are things that you've seen product teams do to think about that, and that need being maybe the product defined broadly, not just the widget that's being built, but the service, the marketing, everything around it. I just thought that was an interesting observation when he talked about the buyer persona. It sort of, to me, sort of reconnected in my head that comment from the video.
Yeah. Exactly. It's so critical that you you really understand the buyer persona and the pain points, because only when you do that, then the next step of the go-to-market plan is like trying to figure out the messaging. Like how do you message it to the users so that they understand the value prop? It's like, okay, you build this cool feature, so what? Like, how does it solve my problem? Like, and how is it different from the solution I'm using it? And that's where positioning comes into play. Like, how are you positioning your product? It's not just this new Coke, which just like, one of the famous products which failed. Really thinking about like, like how exactly are you positioning your product? Are you doing like a price-based positioning? Are you being like a value-based positioning? Like really thinking about what's the message and how you're going to help differentiate your product from the rest of the competitors, and that's going to be critical. So that's the next part of the go-to-market plan. So once you're done with the messaging and positioning, then you need to think about what channels you're going to use to reach those persona, right? So what channels you're going to use, and obviously, it shouldn't just be like one channel. Hopefully you have multiple channels in mind, a combination of like emails and digital marketing and ads and SEO. So what kind of channels, what is the channel mix you're going to use to actually reach the customer? Then once you decide on the channels, then you need to work with the marketing ops team and designers to actually come up with marketing collateral, copies and assets, and generate all of that. Then you need to, and then depending on the type of the company you need to train your salespeople. So generate sales enablement material. You need to train your customer support, customer success people. So you need to have like webinars to train all of them, and you need to have a lot of material to actually train them about the feature which is going to be launched. And then finally, you have a launch day where you have your whole launch day checklist, where you basically run a checklist to make sure the engineering is ready, the marketing is ready, the sales is ready, the execs have signed off on the messaging. They make sure that, and then the legal and privacy and other folks in the company have also been kind of signed off on the messaging and the launch as a whole. So there's a whole launch day checklist you need to put together. And then finally, there's the stakeholder management we talked about. Making sure you message the same thing at various levels to the execs, to the salespeople, to your customers, to engineering team, to marketing team. Just make sure everyone's on the same page before you hit the go live button on your launch, right? So all of these actually is basically like a go to market plan. So which basically requires significant investment upfront, which a lot of companies miss, and people who do it right are the ones which really succeed.